Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. After my long hiatus from my first video back, I went into the Discord asking for potential ideas on what to make the video about. Outside of the clearly impossible challenge suggestions, one that caught my fancy was a challenge that restricted the use of primary weapons. Winning a delve without a primary is hard, but not impossible. In today's video, I hope to catalog winning with each weapon combination without utilizing the primary weapon. This video did take about 12 hours of filming that my poor editor had to sort through, so sorry about that one, Nate.
It would mean a lot to me if you guys would subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and it does help me grow to reach further VR audiences or non-VR audiences who may be interested in the game. Now, let's not delay any further, let's get straight into the video. I'm going to address the elephant in the room in the very beginning. One of these weapons was much easier than the others in terms of winning. The throwing knife from the sword and knife weapon combo is far and away the best secondary weapon in this game, and it led to a particularly easy win. The throwing knife was not unbeatable, and it did struggle against rushdown enemies. I'll have Nate put some pictures up when I mention enemies on the screen, but the primary offenders were the zip slimes, the possessed skulls, and the wisps from the Forgotten Library. I had wanted to give a special mention to the bone slimes in the Glooming Mines as well, as they are very fast, very hard to hit, and it's impossible to block the death damage without your primary weapon. Evasion is key with this weapon setup. However, unlike every other weapon combo I'm about to talk about, the knife did extraordinarily well against the beast in all of its phases. Hitting the eyes in phase 1, you're able to do well because you can attack from a safe distance and you don't have to get dangerously close to the boss. Phase 2, it will come after you, but you can attack it from a safe distance where you can dodge its attacks, both the large overwhelming attack and the beam attack similar to that of the boss in the Forgotten Library. Phase 3 is where the charges at you, you're able to sidestep and land strikes, and it leads to an easy win. Well, I guess I shouldn't really say easy. The drop down phases, I call them intermission phases, of the beast fight were not super easy because you have to deal with the rushdown possessed skulls. If you were wanting to attempt this challenge by winning without a primary weapon, I would highly recommend using the throwing knife. It has particularly good augments that are worth noting. The one that allows it to deal damage on sequential attacks that scale, and ones that allow it to deal full damage when returning through an enemy. For the next part of the video, I'd like to talk about the Tome and Wand. Now, technically, the Tome is considered a melee weapon of its class, with the Wand being a ranged weapon, of course. But it has a rather large fan attack called the Incantation that makes it functionally a short-ranged spread weapon, similar to something like a sawed-off shotgun in other shooter video games. Very short range, very wide range, but still not truly a melee weapon. I did utilize the ice augment for this challenge. It freezes enemies. It was particularly helpful against bulky enemies that did not succumb immediately to a single strike, such as the infested zombie and both skeleton variants, the minor and the non-minor, within the Gloaming Mines. I will say I got incredibly lucky and did not run into a possessed armor in the library on the run that I won. I would have had to just run away, and I have had to do that before in an unsuccessful attempt because you don't really have a way to block it without your wand. Now, let's address the elephant in the room for the Tome and Wand. The beast eyes. Now, fortunately for us, and it was really fortunate, the beast eyes are just in range of the incantation spread attack. You have to stand almost directly under and look directly upward to hit the highest central eyes, but it can be done. Now, unlike the throwing knife as a melee weapon, it does really good in the intermission phases, with the possessed skulls, and it kind of makes it a cakewalk. Phase 2 of the beast was rather difficult. You had to get kind of close on its attacks, and it leads to some damage, but the book itself doesn't do enough damage to get that close to it. You don't have any safety, and you don't deal enough damage, but it is beatable. Phase 3, it's a stumpy melee weapon, but it is a melee weapon. You can hit the beast with the book and cause it to reset its strike. Overall, I don't think this is the hardest weapon to use for this challenge, but it did take me the most attempts. It took me close to 4 or 5 attempts. It took me an entire Saturday to win this with this weapon. It was actually quite difficult, but I don't think it's hardest. Saving the obviously hardest weapon for last, let's talk about the brand new weapon, the Flail and the Bomb. While I think this weapon combination is very fun, using the bomb only is a huge detriment. Most of your damage actually comes from the flail itself, as it's a very damaging weapon, and the bomb is kind of an afterthought that you use on enemies you don't want to get particularly close to. Using the bomb actually takes quite a bit of effort, as it does damage on direct impact and with the large explosion. When I did my attempt, I didn't really have enough beast blood to use to get full augments for this weapon. If I did have augments, I would highly recommend the shrapnel upgrade to increase the damage output. The main issue the bomb has in this challenge is that it's rather slow. Similar to the crossbow, it just takes a good chunk of time for the weapon to actually recover after being used. Unlike the crossbow, it's a secondary weapon and therefore has further reduced damage output. Winning with this weapon is about scaling your damage as fast as possible. Fortunately, if you can scale its damage, it doesn't have too many weaknesses. You can use it as an almost buckler-like punching augment because it doesn't really obstruct your view of your hand, and the large explosion makes it forgiving against swarm-style enemies, such as bats and wisps that other ranged weapons may struggle with. Similar to the Tome and the Wand, I was very fortunate not to run into any possessed armors within the Forgotten Library. In the exact same instance, I would have had no defense. All of the boss fights could be described with 2 adjectives: uneventful and slow. The bomb does provide excellent safety if you can be evasive, but the low damage output and slow attack rate means that fights are extended longer than you would like them to be. Because I played super safe and super slow, my first very long attempt was successful. And finally, the weapon I considered to be the worst for this challenge and would not recommend using to anyone under these circumstances is the Crossbow and Dagger. While typically an excellent weapon combination that I am particularly fond of, having the crossbow banned is particularly troublesome. Losing access to any amount of range causes a plethora of weaknesses throughout the dungeon. About to lift off some more enemies here, Nate. I hope you're ready. Every species of projectile-based vine on the ceiling have to be reflected to be defeated. Enemies with damage upon defeat, such as the aberrant wisp, and basically every enemy within the infested dungeon, can cause damage, and you have to remain out of range of it whenever they are defeated. And then there's the floating crystals within the library that without the winged shoe you can't even attack. And obviously the most problematic is the beast in phase 1. Now, I don't want to sit here and say that this weapon is bad on its own, because it does have its own very particular strengths. Of all of these weapons, it is the only one that can really deal with the possessed armors, and it does do excellent damage for a secondary weapon, and it allows for defensive counterplay. It's one of the only things that allow you to block traps other than the tome. The other thing I'd like to mention is how particularly lucky this run was with this combo. Acute listeners may have already realized I said run singular, and it is true. I was able to beat this on the very first attempt. Now you may be asking yourself, how? Nate, I'm going to give them the reason, if you wouldn't mind just throwing them up on the screen to give them a big shout out. It was the Innocence Mark and the Gold Chime. Yes, I did also find the Possessed Hammer, which was really, really important for the early run, but the Innocence Mark and the Gold Chime were instrumental in winning this run. I tried everything to hit the beast with a melee attack. I tried setting my height really high within my Oculus settings and couldn't get there. I even tried going into my basement, standing on a ladder. Please do not try this at home, I am a trained professional. But all I did was hit my ceiling in the garage with my hand. It hurt my hand a little bit, and I just woke up my wife. Didn't lead to any real success. After that happened, I actually paused my game for a while and sat down and thought that this run was all in vain, that it was impossible. And then when I got back in to try and think of a different way to do it, I noticed one of my wisps struck an eye. And with that, I damage boosted through it with my dragon fruit and my other food item, along with the innocence mark, which gives you an extra heart to play with. Now, very fortunately, the sword is particularly strong at dealing with the possessed skulls in the intermission rounds. Phase 2, while dangerous, was over pretty quickly due to the dagger's really high damage output. And Phase 3, while you get there at really low health after having to damage boost through it, the earlier phases was kind of a cakewalk because the charges can be reset easily by a high damage weapon. And once you got through that, I have cleared all of the delves. So I really do hope you found this video at least entertaining and maybe even educational if you're seeking to do a similar type of challenge. I'm hoping to get back into the pattern of posting more regularly after taking a very long, unintentional break from posting. But with that being said, I am currently working on a couple of very large projects. I would also like to share that I am a partnered content creator with Ancient Dungeon, and I couldn't be more thrilled to share future updates, gameplay, and my assessment of overall builds and relics with you guys. With that being said, if there is interest, I'll run a giveaway on the next video for a game key or two, if you find it rather interesting. As I said at the beginning of the video, please subscribe if you haven't already. It's free, it doesn't cost you anything, and I really hope to see you on the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day.